Remember, they're away from their delegation. The delegations are inside Hyderabad House. A special Shamiana has been erected at Hyderabad House for the two leaders to share their thoughts, to speak to each other, to create this kind of informality in the relationship. Many have expressed the importance of the personal chemistry between the two leaders, resulting in some kind of a breakthrough eventually. So it's important as they go through. Interestingly, Lotus, I think, are those Lotus ponds. So there's been some talk on Twitter, Lotus meets POTUS. That is Lotus, i.e. Narendra Modi meets POTUS, i.e. President of the United States. So that's happening as at the moment of between the two leaders there in the lawns of the Hyderabad House there. The two leaders in conversation with each other, a personal touch in a sense to the talks between the two leaders, which makes many believe a difference. Remember, as I keep saying, this is not the first meeting that the two leaders have had. Apart also from their summit level talks in Washington, they've met in other parts of the world, including at the East Asia Summit and at the G20. So the two leaders have built some kind of a chemistry or some kind of an equation, one would like to believe. Are there more similarities than differences between the two leaders? Is something we've been discussing, and I want to focus on that in a moment with you, Mr. Parthasarathy. I've been reading articles which say, look, Narendra Modi and Barack Obama have a lot in common. And one of the things they have in common is that they're outsiders to the establishment in a sense. Mr. Modi as a Chief Minister of Gujarat, then becoming, of course, the Prime Minister of India, the only second Chief Minister while being Chief Minister, the other being Deve Gowda. And in the case of the United States, you've got Barack Obama, who virtually, from being a senator in Chicago, then eventually becomes the President of the United States. Do you see commonalities between the two? Both effective communicators, both use the media well, both are, in a sense, have come from relatively humble backgrounds to where they've reached. Do you see similarities, or do the differences, one being a pracharak and the other being a Harvard Ivy League student?
Well, I think both have one thing in common.
Yes.
They are great in mass communication. Modi can hold any audience spellbound with rhetoric. Obama, with "Yes, we can," showed that he could win a US presidential election with 3 words: "Yes, we can." To deal with a very skeptical country.
By far a better communicator than even Obama, extempore. You know, a lot of Mr. Obama, his great State of the Union address that he gave the other day, but a lot of it is still on the teleprompter. Narendra Modi just needs bullet points. I mean, one thing you've got to acknowledge about Mr. Modi is that he is a master communicator.
That's what I said.
But even better perhaps than Obama is the point. I'm trying to say that we are even, our Prime Minister is better than their President.
The two are in a different context.
Yes.
Mr. Modi is addressing a different type of audience, and he's addressing a different type of audience.
Yes.
Let me say, from what little I've known of Mr. Modi, and incidentally, you may not remember, but Mr. Modi and I appeared in your program in 2001.
You are going to... No, I'll tell you the date. And it's a significant program because it was a significant moment in Narendra Modi's life. 9/11 had happened. 5 days after 9/11, we had a debate on a program called Big Fight. I was in NDTV in those days. I used to anchor that program. And we had Mr. Parthasarathy, we had Narendra Modi, and we had Dr. Rafiq Zakaria, the father of Fareed Zakaria, discussing Islamic terror. And in fact, no other BJP leader was willing to come that day for the program, but Mr. Modi did. So if you can catch that on YouTube, it's a fascinating program. And the one thing that stood out about Mr. Modi even then is that there was a certain self-confidence when it came to communication.
Not only was there self-confidence, with him being cross-questioned by John Elliott, the British journalist, he replied in English.
That's right. Because, you know, one of the things people will be asking, Mr. Modi's preferred language is Hindi. But here in a one-on-one, presumably Veena Sikri, they will speak in English, right?
Yes.
So Mr. Modi is now confident enough.
He was confident in 2001.
He was confident though much of his talk in that debate was in Hindi. He spoke, occasionally broke into English. We saw him at the Economic Times Summit the other day give a speech in English. But in a one-on-one, presumably as they're sharing sort of a cup of tea, presumably, and talking to each other, the language would be English?
The language would be English. And I think that I'd like to emphasize here that Prime Minister Modi's tremendous sense of communication and tremendous sense of self-confidence comes from his personal knowledge by traveling all around the country.
Yes.
So he's not a person who's learnt his knowledge from books. He's learned his knowledge from meeting people, finding out the problems, and very confident that these are the problems and these are the ways to solve them, because He's received this wisdom from the people who are actually suffering. And I think that gives him the tremendous respect and admiration of the people of India, but also the international community, because they realize that how many personal hurdles he had to overcome in his life. He's a self-taught man, and he's, done his masters on his own just to sort of educate himself and know what is a higher education. And I think he is now giving back to society what he learned from them.
Let me therefore ask Kamal Mitra Chinoy, who's a critic of Modi. Do you believe that Narendra Modi has, in a sense, sort of transcended that image trap? Do you still see him as you saw him a few years ago? I'm not sure, but you were among those who were sort of advocating that he be denied a US visa at the time. A number of academics I know in the United States also were supporting the idea that Mr. Modi not be given a visa. Now that he's Prime Minister of the country, now that you see him there chatting with the US President, do you believe all that is behind Mr. Modi?
Look, I think one thing which has not been given adequate attention is the fact that he was a pracharak who have pretty rigorous training. And it was because of that that he had to leave his wife, because pracharaks are not allowed to have a wife. And I think he has grown consistently. He's a quick learner. From what I heard from people in Gujarat, many of whom are big critics of his, but they said he was a quick learner, and if you went and spoke to him straight, then he'd give you a straight answer. So I think, Mr. Parthasadi was talking about the ambiance and the you grow up in.
So do you believe, go ahead.
So I believe he has, the learning of substantial amounts of English. He is a self-taught man, but he has been molded by a particular kind of training, and that also shows.
Do you regret, therefore, being among those who was signing on to the fact that Narendra Modi be denied a visa to the United States?
By the way, I didn't sign on to him being denied a visa.
But you were among those who believe that Modi should not be given a visa.
I wrote an article in the Hindustan Times where I differed with the rest of the opposition who said he should get a visa, and there was no charges were proved. So I cited the example of Slobodan Milosevic, and I said he should be recognized. No, but because
do you regret the fact that or do you believe that perhaps Mr. Modi at the time was someone who still needed to sort of? Do you still believe that that you were right?
Look, a very strange thing happened in Gujarat. There was a Nanavati commission. From 2002 till the end of last year, it functioned. It submitted a report. Press asked him to interview Mr. Modi. They said no. He was the chief minister of Gujarat when all this happened. So I don't regret, as a human rights activist, doing this. I don't think I was wrong, but sometimes surely I would be wrong. Because, for example, I went to Chiti Singhpura. The biggest attack on me was from Pankaj Mishra and others, who said this was done by the Indian army, and I said, no, this has been done by the LET.
But I don't
reject that.
Can I just focus on Mr. Modi, the evolution of Mr. Modi? Mr. Modi still, in a sense, has his critics. Maybe they are fewer today than they were 10 years ago, but he still has his critics. And yet you today see world leaders acknowledging him, the United States now acknowledging him. I think this is a recognition, in a sense, of Mr. Modi's arrival on the international stage. Do you see Mr. Modi having evolved, or do you believe that his critics got it wrong in the first place? How do you see Mr. Modi today purely as a on the world stage?
Look, everybody evolves, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't pass judgment on others, but the person who headed the SIT, Raghavan, is a childhood friend of mine, and I know him to be a very straight cop. Nobody has ever accused Raghavan of anything of that sort. But that aside, I think the respect he enjoys today, let's face it, is because of the mandate he has got from the people in the largest democracy in the world. That's it.
So the US president is acknowledging, in a sense, because this is a country, I come back to it, which denied him a visa for a decade.
In an ultimate analysis, a person who has the mandate of the largest democracy in the world needs no recognition from Barack Obama. He's got that recognition
from his own people. And is that, do you see a much more self-confident Modi, in a sense? As I said, we knew him from 2001.
I saw him as confident then as he is today.
No, I remember meeting him in 1990. I don't think in 1990 Mr. Modi would have been able to carry out a fluent discussion in English of the kind that he seems to be having with Barack Obama. And I think the one thing that all of us will acknowledge is Mr. Modi has this constant desire for self-improvement. And I remember him telling me this in the 1990s. Rajdeep, ek din dekh lena, main Angrezi mein bhashan karunga. So the days of that bhashan have come. I mentioned that in my book. And now you're seeing him in a very intimate one-on-one situation with the US president, presumably speaking English. Do you see this as this constant process of improvement?
I think he is very consciously wanting to self-improve all the time. And this is a great quality.
Yes.
Because many people, when they achieve a high position like this, they think they know it all, and that there's no scope for anything more that they need to know. But Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister Modi's constant interest in knowing more so that he can self-improve and do things better to serve the people of India, that is a great positive quality. And the other thing I think also is the actual performance in Gujarat. I think, you know, I think first of all...
That's where that's where the critics will now come and question the Modi's
let's not go, I'm not even going to argue on the basis of statistics, but you have to argue on the basis of investor confidence. You have to argue on the basis of the courts, what the judiciary of India has said. If you're going to say anything, you're actually denying the strength of the Indian judiciary, and I think that's a very serious matter.
I'll give you some interesting social statistics.
No, I think statistics are not the point.
No. You cannot go by impressions when there is data. That's not a fair way of arguing.
Can I just bring in another guest who apparently my producer Rajiv Dogra, I want to apologize first that we didn't get you in earlier. Appreciate your staying with us at the moment. We're looking at Narendra Modi's evolution. How do you see his evolution to the point where today he's having this extended one-on-one in English with the US president? Many a few years ago would have doubted whether Mr. Modi would be able to understand the nuances of foreign policy, but most today are acknowledging that in the last 7 months on foreign policy, whether it was inviting SAARC leaders for his swearing in, to today the second visit with the second such summit meeting with the US president, he's come a long way. How do you see him?
Well, since I missed the chance to talk on some of the other things, let me pontificate on all those issues.
No, I'll bring you in on those. I want to first discuss Modi.
First, Modi, of course.
Yes.
I think English should not be a measure of his qualification or a measure of his achievement.
Yes.
What his achievement really has been, that whether it was in Gujarat or in Delhi, he's brought a tremendous amount of self-confidence, self-belief, and he's carried the people along.
Yes.
Whether rightly or wrongly, he has made the people of Gujarat believe that it was he who made this tremendous transformation in the bureaucratic, industrial and business circles. And anyone who goes to Gujarat tends to agree with that. The same thing in Delhi, whether it is happening or would happen later, that's immaterial. He has made people believe that yes, it can be done.
I think
the third thing is, which I still remember, is he was asked a question during the campaign that, you know, if you take over as Prime Minister, you would face drought in your first year. He said, I am a lucky man. I have never had a drought in Gujarat and I will not have a drought in Delhi, which is what has happened so far. So I think besides his capability of adjusting to the environment that he is in, he brings a lot of self-confidence and self-belief in whatever he is doing.
Okay.
That has been his track record so far, and that is where there is a huge similarity between him and Obama.
I think I take your point. I think what we are seeing is clearly the arrival of Narendra Modi with every such encounter on the world stage. Clearly someone now who is seen, acknowledged by the international community as a leader who commands the support of the world's largest democracy. And I think that electoral mandate, the extent of the mandate that he got in May 2014 seems to give him that growing self-confidence which we seem to see now in every sort of public appearance that Mr. Modi has. And I believe what Kamal Sibal says is right. In my view, purely in terms of his ability to talk extempore, Modi is as good as it comes in international public engagements and public speaking. That's his strength. It's also been a strength of Barack Obama as well. Let's take a break at this point as we watch the two leaders walking through the lawns of Hyderabad House. This is the new face of the Indo-US partnership.